well, somebody thought it would be a good idea to give me a microphone in front of 100 people. And a clicker with this whole PowerPoint, so bear with me. You did say, though, we are in a church, so there are limitations, right? As to what I can say.
The limitations are upon your...
Are upon your way. Okay. Well, all right. Now I'll get to the script. First, I do want to thank everyone that's here today, and not just for being here today, but also for how you've been there for my mom and my brother and the rest of our family. Clicker works, that's good. It's been really meaningful and relieving to know that you're all here for me, you're all here for Dustin, you're all here for my mom. Helping us through everything, and of course making us lasagna. How many different lasagnas have we had? They're not even going to say it. I think we have like a ranking system going, and I think we're actually just going to pitch a TV show to the Food Network. That's like the point where it's gotten to. But seriously, do keep them coming. No, wait, that's not the order it says. But seriously, we do need you. This has been the most difficult time in my life. And I'm sure my mom and Dustin have similar feelings about that. So we can't express our appreciation enough. All right, well, in typical Bruce Balton fashion, today's service is being videotaped. I think the state of Pennsylvania legally requires me to announce that to everyone, so you know. The idea is really just to be able to share it with some family that can't be here. In videotaping today's event, we're doing something that my dad was very good at, which was saving stuff and then being able to share it. So whether it was the memories in the forms of hours or days or weeks or months worth of videotapes, remember those little, like we're shooting on a little memory card, it's crazy, right? Or physically collecting stuff. Some people have actually referred to, I have a similar problem, I've been called a kleptomaniac. And that's some of the things that might be what you would call me. Take a look at some collections, coins, hats, those are some hats there. Put the arrow in PowerPoint to illustrate where that is. Keychains, credentials, autographs, discarded props and signage, beer glasses, beer growlers, beer bottles. You name it, it didn't matter. He had a place for it and he was saving it. But it wasn't just to clutter the basement, the Museum of Bruce, as we've dubbed it. Now, he hung on to those things because they were a physical representation of a memory, a moment in time, and experiencing something extraordinary with people who were extraordinary. Every photo that hung in his office, everything that sat on the shelf in the garage, the guitar picks under the plexiglass of the Kevin Bacon bar. Have you heard? He had a bar from a Kevin Bacon movie. Has everyone gotten that memo yet? They all served as a physical reminder, and they all had a story behind these objects. He was proud of what he did, and not just because he did it, but because of the people he got to do it with, and because of the people who benefited from what he did. We're all a collection of other people's experiences and knowledge, right? We are who we are because of the people in our lives who provide us their knowledge and their ideals, and they share in our experiences. We're the greatest hits compilation album of all the best people in our lives. And he was lucky because in his relatively short life, he was able to meet so many great people and experience so many great different things. His greatest hits album was a rich and eclectic one. And of course, what good is all of that knowledge and stuff without someone to share it with? And don't worry, if you had ever been within earshot of my dad, you knew he loved to share it. As much as he was a saver, he was a sharer. And he didn't just play back his greatest hits album like in the background, like elevator music. No, he blasted it on his Bose surround sound system for the whole neighborhood to hear. In some cases, the Woodland security did have to be called. And I'm actually not making that up. As a former colleague of his wrote to me on Facebook, and we all know how much he loved Facebook, he always had an answer for whatever problems came up. And you always knew what was on his mind. There was no, and this is one of those moments, BS. I am in church, I have to say that right. So he was a saver and a sharer. And heck, he even saved and shared things for a living, working behind the camera. After he had his stroke 13 years ago and came back around and was able to speak to the nurses, they were asking him questions. Who was the president? What day was it? What was his job? So they were all terrified when all he could muster up was, "I shoot people." It was a career he loved so much that he was back to work within a year after that stroke. A stroke that had a chance of permanently debilitating him. But it wasn't just because working in television is glorious. As Uncle Rob, pictured here, would say, making TV is like making sausage, right? Do I have that right? You may really enjoy the final product, but you don't want to know how it's made. And as glorious and rewarding as it could be, it's not an easy life. In an extremely competitive freelance industry, you have to work with the highest work ethic. You have to perform flawlessly every day, even on holidays like Christmas, New Year's, Easter, Super Bowl Sunday. You need to combine creative, technical, and physical skill to make other people look good, to serve other people, directors, talent, and of course your viewers. Neatness counts, he always used to say, and that wasn't just on the job. Garden hose also needed to be over-under. With all the pressure of live TV, it's terrifying. Don't ask me why I decided to follow in his footsteps. I guess, as he would say, it's a labor of love, and that's a big reason why I do it as well. Aside from being a saver and a sharer, he definitely was a lover. He loved and appreciated everything, from all varieties of grilled meats, to a good Indy car race or a good Mets game, from a properly power-washed motorhome and perfectly tended campfire, to the fine art of snow removal. From his wide yet still carefully curated taste in music to, well, of course, the people in his life, his family and his friends. He was passionate about everyone, and he was passionate about everything. So he kept up the roles as a saver, as a sharer, a lover, despite having a very difficult past 15 years or so of his life. Like I mentioned, he had that stroke, and within a year he got back to work. He had a hip replacement a few years later, and a month later, he was doing what he loved at the Tony Awards. He lost his parents and a close cousin and other family members. He injured his wrist and was forced to retire from the career he loved. And then, 2 years ago, he lost the one thing that he poured his whole life and soul into, his home of 23 years that he raised Dustin and I in. As terrible of a tragedy that fire was, he didn't miss a beat. Despite the stroke, despite his anxiety, despite being out of work, despite losing almost every physical object in his life, he took the opportunity to let his resilience and perseverance truly shine. He was interviewed by a local news reporter the morning of the fire. When he showed me the report a few weeks later, for everything he had gone through, I was speechless by how articulate, how calm, how thankful, and how strong he was in the video. While he was literally watching everything he had burn to the ground, he was all of these qualities, even as he watched it consume much of what he loved and much of what he had saved. Once again, though, he dusted himself off, just like after other obstacles that had been thrown at his life. He managed everything with the insurance company. He didn't give up on the beautiful land where he and my mom had raised Dustin and me. He was essentially the foreman of the construction site as they rebuilt the house, to his specifications, coming by every day to photograph the process, and of course, share it with everyone on Facebook. After we moved in, the day before Christmas Eve of that same year, it was clear that he had found purpose in his life, post-career, post-raising Dustin and me. Every time we would come home, he had another project completed. You would never guess, if you've been to the new house now, you'd never guess that it hadn't been there forever, because he and my mom had quickly made it our home. So a saver, a sharer, a lover, a perseverer, is that a word? Get a check on that. His greatest hits album ended on a high note. The new home had been built. It had been Bruce-sized. He got to see Dustin and me both graduate college and both land jobs. Dustin's graduation was, I'm supposed to keep going. Dustin's graduation was just this year from Philadelphia University. My own was at Syracuse a few years ago. We got to see Dustin land his new job with an engineering firm in Philadelphia. And also, he got to see me land my job at ESPN. And of course, I got all the critical feedback of all my work. Everything was DVR'd, and I'd get a critique the next morning of my work. He spent his final birthday this year surrounded by his entire family, celebrating his oldest niece's wedding. His most recent struggle was temporarily losing his license because he had a couple seizures back in December. A couple days before he died, he texted this photo to Dustin and me. It's of a celebratory glass of Duvel that he was drinking because he had just received word that his license was in the mail and he was cleared to drive again. So naturally, the Beamer and Jetta were carefully maintained, cleaned, and ready for the road. The lawn was cut to perfection. Finale of Breaking Bad had aired. The chicken was marinated for the weekend, and he had his best friends by his side every day, our two cats, Smoke and Ash, and yeah, okay, I guess my mom as well. And just like that, it was probably the happiest time of his life, the best time of his life, the most peaceful time of his life. He suddenly died. He died because he literally had too big of a heart. That's, in more scientific terms, that's what the paperwork actually says, that the cause of his death was that his heart was too big. One of my dad's obsessions was with lighting, whether it was work, actually rigging and setting up lights for TV shoots, which is how he actually started out in the business, or his remote-controlled lighting scheme to illuminate the house or his property. He always lit the way for us. It's one of the reasons why we're collecting money to install a new street light in Melford in front of the new library in his memory. And while it may no longer be with solar-paneled LED lights, he's still lighting the way for us. He's lighting the way to the day when we no longer have to keep that greatest hits album on repeat, and when we can join him for our reunion tour. He's given us his example to lead us there, to save, to share, to love, and to persevere. Thank you.